Hey guys, welcome to WDWNT Nerd Alert, and this is the Spider-Man No Way Home Roundtable. So today what we're doing is I'm your host, Joe Hogarty, and also joining me as usual is Jack McCarthy.
Howdy, folks.
And Fedra Ekres.
Hello, everyone.
But we have some special guests with us on this roundtable.
A plethora of guests.
Yes, we do. And first we have Charlie Hunter from Rusted Junk.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here.
Then we have Daniel McComb.
Hi, everyone.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
All right. We have Julian Bandalos.
What's up, everyone? How are y'all?
We have Bianca Forero.
Hi, guys.
And finally, Sean Flemming.
Howdy.
So we've all seen Spider-Man No Way Home, and we're going to just basically give our impressions. Then we're going to rate it out of 10. And go into spoilers, and then specifically a number. It'll be upper tier, lower tier, middle tier. You know, we just don't want to get crazy with numbers and all that. But all right, well, let's get things started. And I guess we'll start with Jack. And the way we're going to do this, just give a brief summary of how you felt about the movie for like maybe 5 minutes or less. Then just give me a number out of 10, and then I'll call the next person. So you ready, Jack?
I could do that.
I know. We'll try hard.
Go?
Yeah, you've
okay.
wasted 30 seconds already.
Oh,
40 seconds.
45.
9. It was good. Go see it.
Oh,
Done.
so you give it a 9?
I give it a 9.
All right.
And you probably know why I give it a 9 if you think about it for a little while. But that
We'll
goes
see.
into spoilers.
Okay. Fedra.
overall, I did not like this film. There were parts of it that I did like. I'm still this theme of Spider-Man played by Tom Holland just still showed this youth that I really, like I said, when we were reviewing this, and what we were hoping for was that I was going to see a more mature Spider-Man. I'm hoping that this will happen, in the next film, but I was really looking forward to that in this film. I will rate it as a very strong 6.
Okay. Charlie.
Oh, if we're keeping it nice and brief in that sense, I didn't like it. I and we will get into that. It was a film made by committee with tick boxes galore. And here you go, guys. Let's forego story. Let's forego development, and let's just put everything in here and hope people don't notice. Unfortunately, and I'm not trying to be controversial, I genuinely went into the cinema trying to love this, but it's a 4.
Okay. Dan.
I'm with Jack. I loved it. It made me realize my hesitancy that I had with the Eternals. And when I think I gave that like a 6. It made me realize that I was right in how I felt about the Eternals when I came away from Spider-Man. I wanted to see it again. It felt like it was like a lot of fan service. It felt like an end game for the Spider-Man movies. And I'd give it a 9.
Okay. Julian.
I would definitely give it overall probably around like a 6. I wasn't really impressed. Visual effects wise, storyline, all of it, I would even probably give it a hard 5. I think I kind of agree with Charlie and on a lot of things, and also what Fedra was mentioning as well. But yeah, it just wasn't doing it for me. And even the
We lost him.
but this one was just not, I don't know, just wasn't really impressive.
Okay. Bianca.
I loved it. I would also give it a 9. I just thought it was a really fun time. The movie flew by when it was over. I still wanted more. And I think it's one of Tom Holland's best performances in all of the MCU movies. I think he was amazing in it. And I really liked it. I liked how they interweaved all the villains and the other, well, we won't get into spoilers, but I really liked it. So I'd give it a 9. And I'm going to see it again this afternoon. So that says how much I like it.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Sean.
We're talking about No Way Home, right? Like the new Spider-Man movie that just came
Yes,
out.
we were talking about No Way Home.
So I must have saw a different movie because I'm going to give it a 9.8. It
Wow.
was an excellent movie. And I don't know if we can go into yet on what the comment made about him being a more mature Spider-Man, but there is a key reason for that. And yeah, I'm going to highly debate that point. I'm excited for this panel.
Wow, we're split.
All right,
right
cool.
down the middle.
Bring
We're
it
super
on.
split.
It's about to go down.
So I'm the deciding
Yeah.
vote, right? I guess. So for me, I wrote the review for the site, and it was funny. I've been writing a lot of negative reviews lately, and I felt really guilty about it because I know people just think I hate everything. So that kind of swayed my number, and I gave it an 8 originally. But the more I thought about it and I tossed and turned at night during my sleep, I couldn't get over the fact that I really didn't like the movie. And I moved it to a 7 on the website. But if I had to be honest, I would say it's probably a 6. And again, I'm not going to mention spoilers, but I said this analogy to Fedra and Julian last night because we went to the party. I think it's like a cake for me, where the icing, which is something that everybody loved in the movie, is really nice to see and it tastes great. But when you get to the cake isn't very good. And we will discuss where we had issues with this movie, but that's how I feel. Unfortunately, I got to give it a 6 out of a 10. And all right, let's get into spoilers. And I guess the big spoiler that we have to talk about is the 3 Spider-Man that were in this movie. We finally got to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland on the screen in Spider-Man costumes. And it was awesome to see, but it wasn't perfect. I know I said you guys can go in order, but you know what? I have faith in you guys and I'll kind of monitor you. Just let me know what you thought about the trio. And did you have a favorite Spider-Man or one that you felt just wasn't hitting it right? I guess let's start with Sean, since he seems like he's really ready to go.
Oh, I'm ready. So the trio were excellent. I thought the writing was pretty spot on and brilliant. I would argue and say, agree with Bianca. I showed Holland showed a lot of range in this movie, probably his most range in any of the solo Spider-Man movies that he's done. Garfield was an absolute blast. The I'm Spider-Man 3 line will probably go down as comic book lore movie line. I thought it was excellent. I mean, I thought the banter between all 3 of them when they were doing their science bro scene and making the stuff, and they all got called Peter. Like I said, I mean, there is very, very little about this movie that I did not enjoy. And one of the highlights was absolutely those 3 coming together. The scene when they both appear through the portals, I mean, guys, it's borderline close to Endgame. It was very close, right below it as far as the anticipation and hype. Because you knew it was coming. Not as better. Nothing will ever top Endgame. Nothing will ever top Cap grabbing the hammer, but it's in the top 5 moments of the MCU.
No, I agree. That moment is pretty cool. And everybody applauded in my theater.
I was just going to say the reaction in our theater was insane. I was screaming. People were screaming, clapping. It was a huge moment when both the Spider-Men came in and when the earlier cameo came in too.
Yeah, that's true. We'll get to him in a minute. But I was going to say, though, I liked Andrew's entrance. I thought that was really cool because he was in his Spider-Man costume. I didn't like Tobey's because I would have appreciated it more if he was in his Spider-Man costume. For him to come in with like a sweater on, it just wasn't as exciting as when we saw Andrew.
But
That
what are
was
the
my-
odds that they both would have been in their costumes? I
Yeah.
mean,
Doesn't
Toby
matter,
was
it's a
just
movie.
hanging out.
you know, but
Yeah,
it's a
He's
but
movie.
also-
I
Older. He's noticeably older. Andrew
Correct.
could pull off still looking the same as he did 5 years ago, whereas Tobey Maguire's 10, 12 years removed from Spider-Man 3. So he had to look noticeably older. He couldn't have come out like he was in Spider-Man 2.
Well, no, I'm not saying that about his age or anything like that. I'm saying that he should have wore his costume, his mask, because when we first saw Andrew Garfield, he was in the alley and he was walking towards the portal. And then we noticed his costume and everybody started cheering. But when we saw Toby, he just walked in plain clothes. I wanted to see the Spider-Man costume on when we first saw him. And for him to take off his mask, I think that would have been a better reveal. That's just me. Maybe I'm nitpicking.
then we wouldn't have got the awesome youth pastor line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, and I think that kind of fits Toby's Spider-Man a little bit more. You know, like he said, he was older. Probably this point in time, he figured out what was going on. Probably wasn't in costume when he got taken. You know, probably was just hanging out with MJ in the living room having a pizza. So I kind of understood it.
I'm just saying, aesthetic wise, and it's a movie. I think it would have been so much cooler if he had his costume on when we first saw him and he took his mask off. Because, you know, they're all iconic costumes because we know, well, us as nerds, we know what the Amazing Spider-Man 2 costume looks like and we all love it. And I love the Spider-Man costume that Toby wears, although Jack always complains about it.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
I'm with Jack. Toby's my least favorite Spider-Man. Yeah, Toby's my least favorite Spider-Man.
In this movie or overall?
Just overall. I'm one of those rare people that I'm not in love with Raimi's. Number 2 is a great movie, good origin story, but after Spider-Man 3, and I'm just not. He was too emo for me. He's my least favorite Spider-Man.
This film made me go back and reevaluate Spider-Man 3 as the worst. That's the worst film.
Charlie really hated this movie.
It's not worse than Amazing
Honestly.
Spider-Man 2, but it is pretty rough.
Well, from my point of view, Tobey Maguire coming in. I love Tobey. I love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I really do. But then, what the jiggins has happened to Andrew Garfield? It's turned into some sort of whiny little, melancholy, depressive. I mean, Fedra, one of the things that you mentioned when you were doing the Spider-Man roundtables, and you were ranking the Spider-Man films, you said, "Oh, I like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3 because I like emo Tobey Maguire," and I'm kind of like, yeah, I kind of appreciate that. But then suddenly Andrew Garfield comes into this, and he's like, "What's happened to you, man? I mean, where's the Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man films?" He was annoying. He just every time he was on doing something, it was just annoying. Get to Tobey Maguire, get to Tom Holland, just leave me out of this.
I agree with that because I
thought this
felt
was
like
an improvement.
Well,
Sorry,
I
Joe.
just don't. No, I'm sorry, Jack. No, I just really quick. I just felt that wasn't the Andrew Garfield from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. He was kind of goofy in this one. He was kind of very excited and happy, and it just felt like he either forgot how to play the character, or the director has no idea what that character was like.
Now,
I thought it was an intention for the
it was
other
a
movies.
huge improvement over the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I found him annoying in those movies. This one, I liked the goofy Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. His character had taken a dark turn, and I thought he was seeing this as like, hey, I'm not alone. There's other Peter Parkers. And must have been like a relief to him to know that, hey, I kind of sort of have brothers, considering, he's an orphan to start with. He lost his girlfriend. His supposed best friend is now some psycho goblin glider rider. I liked this turn of Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. If he was the same whiny jerk of, oh, I want to tell you what I mean. Oh, but no, I can't. Never mind, guys. Oh, yeah, but it's really important. But no, I really don't want to share. Man, that drove me nuts in the Amazing Spider-Man movie. That wasn't cute. That wasn't coy. That was just being a whiny
Don't say it.
person. And I'm glad we didn't see that with them this time. This time I enjoyed Andrew Garfield for the first time as Spider-Man. So
What about you, Dan?
Like I was saying, I thought it was redemption for how the other two, well, what would have been trilogies if they'd have kept going with Amazing Spider-Man, how they made up for those. I thought the writing was very clever in when Andrew Garfield was feeling sorry for himself, and then Toby was saying, "No, but you're amazing," because he was Amazing Spider-Man. He was
Yeah, I
in
like that. Yeah.
series of movies, and it just felt like, and I don't think we would have liked Andrew Garfield as much in this movie if he hadn't been as whiny as he was in the other movies, because it just felt like the writers knew how we all felt. It's almost like they listened to the rankings from last week or the week before, and they knew how all the fans felt about the good points and the bad points from all the different Spider-Man movies, and they factored that into the writing. And there was just all those little clever lines and moments to just kind of nicely wrap up all those different series of movies in this Tom Holland movie. I just felt that I wasn't sure how they were going to work, and because it would have been just easy to throw them on screen and you'd have got the cheap pop from every, like you said, the icing on the cake. But I felt that they went back and fixed some of the issues with the other Spider-Man movies, and now you almost have to look at the Sony Spider-Man saga, and you have to look at it now as 8 movies. You'd have to look at it as an 8-movie saga rather than a Tom Holland trilogy. A lot of fan service in there.
No, that is pretty cool. And I did want to mention, Sean, I didn't catch that whole thing when he said Spider-Man 3.
Oh, it's great.
I know they said, well, you be 1, you be 2. And what did he say? I'll be Spider-Man 3.
I'll be Spider-Man 3.
All right, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Brilliant.
I missed
Absolutely
that. Bianca, did you have a favorite Spider-Man in this one?
My favorite Spider-Man for a long time has been Andrew Garfield. I know that's a unpopular opinion, but that's just my time period. I think his movies came out, when I was in high school. I love him. I love Emma Stone. I love Dane DeHaan. I love all the actors that were in those movies. And I thought he was amazing, no pun intended, in this movie. But like I said earlier, I was really blown away by Tom Holland's performance, because I'll be honest, I haven't been the biggest Tom Holland as Spider-Man person. I think he's great, but I just was kind of like, I'm not really feeling his emotions, and he just seems a little one note, but he was so good in this movie. But it's really a 3-way tie. I thought they were all great. Toby was great. I mean, we have to talk about the scene, not just where Toby and Andrew came into the movie, but where they met Tom Holland, when Tom Holland was, upset on the roof, and Ned and MJ come and comfort him. And then they say, there's a couple of people here that need to meet you. I mean, that has to be one of the best scenes in a Marvel movie ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I still would have appreciated if they had their masks on and then they took their masks off. I love masks. I know they want to show the stars and everything, but it just drives me nuts. Like when we get to see Tom Holland is probably, I would say 70% he has his mask off when he's Spider-Man in all of his trilogy, and forget about Endgame. I don't even think he had it on. I'm just not a fan of that. I know that, again, that's nitpicking. Julian, so what about you? Was a particular Spider-Man, did he stand out for you in this movie, or?
I'm gonna try and make it fast, only because I know my internet's cutting out. But yeah, I think I'm not a big fan of Tom Holland, and I still kind of wasn't really a big fan of Tom Holland in this one either. I think I agree with you where I liked Tobey Maguire only because he kind of like played the little bit more mature Spider-Man. He kind of played that father figure Spider-Man, which I actually really admired out of like all 3 of them. But then at the same time, I do also like the Andrew Garfield, like goofy,
Goofy. Yeah, you're freezing up.
Yeah. All right. But I do like that his sense of humor. I did like the Amazing Spider-Man, like 1 and 2. I was hoping that there would be a third one, but however, I guess Andrew messed that one up. But yeah, I mean, out of all of the Spider-Man, I would probably say like the Amazing Spider-Man is more my favorite, only because of his sense of humor. And I mean, I'm more attracted to like, you know, comedy and stuff like that. So I really admired that aspect. And but then at the same time, I did like the duo, you know, like you had like Andrew Garfield, who brought a little bit of comedy, you had Tobey Maguire, who brought a little bit more of you know, like that mentorship, because he was a little bit older. And I also really love the idea where they were just like, where do you get like your webs from? And it just comes from his wrists, you know?
Yeah.
And he is just like, I don't know, it just comes from here. And they're like, how does that happen? You know, I thought that was a really cool idea that they put in there.
That was a funny scene. That was great.
That was awesome, man. I love that. But I did like the duo. However, me personally, I'm not like the biggest Tom Holland fan. So I don't know. I wasn't really so I wasn't really so attracted to the idea how they presented them into the movie. However, me being like a visual effects person, I think I'm freezing up again.
Yeah. So just like wrap it up.
Am I there? Hello?
Yeah, no, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I me being a visual effects person, I just thought it was like, how easy is it for somebody to just whip up a portal, you know, for their first time whipping up a portal and then bring in two new Spider-Man. You know, I thought that was a little bit too easy on their behalf. And, you know, like it would have been cool if they introduced them, maybe one of them through a portal and then the other one through another way. I thought that would have been pretty unique. But I do also like the idea that Tobey Maguire wasn't wearing his costume. Now that's just me. I thought it was actually pretty cool how when they were like kind of going to prepare and suit up and they look over at Tobey and they're like, dude, where's your costume? And he's like, come on, bro, I got it right here. You know?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's great.
actually like
Sean wanted to make a point. What were you saying, Sean?
Exactly.
No, with the Ned thing. Now this is going to be deep rooted, what I'm about to say, but doing a sling ring is not really too complicated as it would seem. It's been done by many characters in the comics on their first attempt. It's not a hard thing to pull off. And I mean, they gave a preview of it. I mean, he did the, real quick and it happened. So it didn't take Doctor Strange long in his first movie. And he wasn't even close anywhere near it with his training. So I wasn't too upset with that.
I don't know. I felt like with Doctor Strange, like first it was a little bit more challenging for him and he had like a lot more focus. If you notice, like circles.
Yeah, but he also had the issue with his hands too. So that probably was a little more challenging.
Yeah, that's true.
In his movie.
And then going back, and then a circle, and then going back, you know?
Well, it also could have been sort of like Ned is younger. He's more open to things because we see him make comic references, still plays with Legos.
Yeah.
Stephen Strange was very much a serious man of science.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it would be a lot harder for him to even grasp the concept of opening a portal when he first started out versus Ned, who's like, oh, yeah, there's wizards everywhere. There's spells.
He has like a more heightened sense because of his youth.
Or more open to the belief in magic that it will work. So I think Ned having an easier time of it. Well, I thought that was a funny twist, but I can get why Ned would have an easier time than Stephen Strange would.
I'm cutting to the meeting where they've got this huge whiteboard and they're going, this is what we need to put in the movie. I don't know. Has anyone got any suggestions? Anyone? And somebody goes, yeah, let's have Ned get Doctor Strange's like thing for his hand and let him do the no. Nobody would ever go for that. Well, guess what? It made the film. And it just felt like, just put something in there, just cram it in, get it in, and get Ned doing this, right? Despite the fact that, Ned is like, Ned's clever. Let's not say he's no idiot. But at the same time, it just felt wrong. There's all these kids talking to these supervillains locked up, and they're treating them with the not the respect that they deserve, and then just like, and then when Ned nicks Doctor Strange's thing, I'm like, I was looking at my watch and going, I've got another hour and a half of this. Oh, good Lord.
Fedra?
So I think the trilogy of Spider-Man, literally, I agree with you, Bianca. Like, once she was saying, like, these are the two that you need to meet, that scene saved the movie for me. It was like, all right, I was waiting for this, So this combination, I agree with Charlie that there was some change to, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, definitely. He seemed more perky, more goofy, more playful. And because this was the scene that I was waiting for, maybe I was a little bit more open to it, where I wasn't like, okay, how come you're not like completely depressed and defeated as a person? But at the same time, it was just happy to see this different dynamics being shown. I also really love Tobey Maguire as the first Spider-Man, in my opinion, to show that kind of wisdom, to show that, that moment when both of them were literally telling, Tom Holland, Spider-Man, like, this is a passage that you have to go through. And one of these things is seeing innocent people fall and you having to go through that. Like, that moment, loved. I actually thought that was, well done. I love the playfulness and brotherhood between them. One great thing that showed the different dynamics of each Spider-Man is they're used to working alone. And here Tom Holland's saying, hey, we have to be a team. We got to work together, and let's do that. I loved that arrangement. I agree with you, Joe. They finally got their masks on. So now they're like doing this teamwork together and showing that motion that I was happy with. The whole of the youth pastor thing, like, I loved it. A lot of people were vocal in the theater when that was happening, cheering and laughing. And it felt like, camaraderie amongst everybody in the film, like, watching it. So that really was the moment that shined for me, where I was finally enjoying the film.
So it's interesting. I looked online and a poll was done to see who was their favorite Spider-Man. And I think this is just overall, not just in this movie, but overwhelmingly, Tobey Maguire was their favorite Spider-Man by 41%. This was done by Morning Consultant. And then Tom Holland came in second at 20%. And then Andrew Garfield came in at 6%. But I think I said Tobey came in at 41%. So I wouldn't mind seeing a Spider-Man 4. I think that would actually do a lot of good business. People still want to see an older Spider-Man, what he's been up to. I mean, again, even though he's older, he's wiser, he's mature. And like I said, my issue with Tom Holland is I think he's a little too immature. And I hope we don't go back to this 15, 16-year-old Spider-Man in the movies again, ever, because it's just not my favorite Spider-Man. I will say, and I want to jump really quick to this because I'm afraid someone's going to steal this. The part that gave me the most chills in this movie was the very end when I saw the sewing machine and Tom Holland's Spider-Man made his own costume. And I was like, thank you. Somebody finally gets it, because that's the Spider-Man I've always wanted to see. None of this Iron Man tech crap that he has on. Now he's alone. He is going to be a really good Spider-Man. I hope he is. But that was the scene that my whole body was on fire. I was like, I can't believe this.
I was imagining that when I was watching the scene. I'm like,
I
Joe Hogarty is sitting there and he's got this big smile on
I
his
did.
point.
I might have been the only one in the theater, that saw that, but I was just so happy. And the colors were bright blue. Oh, I was just ecstatic. Just opens up such possibilities, and hopefully they don't mess it up. All right. Let's get to the villains. So Let's see here. Charlie, what would you think about the villains? Like, did you have a favorite or?
Well, Vulture is my favorite, but obviously he's not involved in this one.
Yeah.
Spider-Man: Homecoming is. I mean, when you asked me to rank my films, it wasn't my number two. I just think that's pretty much perfect. That's wonderful. That's a 9 out of 10 kind of film, and it works because you've got Michael Keaton, and you've got the way that works in this film. Doc Ock is a fan favorite. He's very good. It's very odd to see him muted in that way with the nanotech. And then you have all the others. You suddenly realise Sandman was not anything in particular. You've got Norman Osborn, who's brilliant, and it's great to see Willem Dafoe back. But it's almost like I know it was in the trailer where they go, "What's your name?" He goes, "Dr. Otto Octavius." I go, seriously?
Yeah, that was
and I'm kind of
cringy.
like, it was, because they all deserve. They're all there. They've all got their story. They've all got their important story that they've told from a villain point of view, and they're being minuscule down to this and sort of ridiculed and disrespected. And I was kind of like, it just seemed a bit mean of the film to treat them like that. So yeah, from a villain point of view, why is it in new Marvel that the villains, that there are no villains anymore? Because they all need to be redeemed. They all need to be cured. They all need to be, go through their journey and then end up like that. No. Villains are be mean. It's Scar in The Lion King, right? Scar doesn't have a redemption story, right? He's a villain through and through. Bring back old Disney, put it into new Marvel, and give us our villains back, and give us people that we can root for. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, no villain, because he's supposed to, Anyway, so yes, from a villain point of view, it was great to see them back. I did like, as I say, Willem Dafoe. I think he's just incredible. But yeah, Doc Ock for me, for the win.
Okay. What about you, Sean?
I thought Defoe, he was spot on with his acting. I appreciated that he was not in his mask as much in this movie. And I'm actually glad that he broke it, because arguably his Green Goblin costume is probably one of the worst villain costumes for a movie. So I'm happy that they kind of got rid of that. It would have been cool to still see him in more of a goblin mask towards the end, but I get why, they did what they did, but I appreciated it. Jamie Foxx has some great one-liners. So you can't, go wrong with that, like the one in the woods and stuff like that. But I thought they're okay. And, the Otto Octavius line, it may be cringy, but maybe I'm one-sided on this, but I've kind of gotten used to that with the MCU. I mean, this is what they do. And for 3 teenage kids that have no idea who this guy is, this is the first time they're meeting him with everything going on. I mean, you hear that's his name and he has 4 arms. I probably would have chuckled too. So I can kind of understand why they took that approach, and especially with the way the MCU has been written at this point in time. So that line didn't bother me that much. But yeah, I thought overall they all did well. The only villain I would say was a tad bit wasted. Maybe we could say the Lizard, which, mainly not that big of a deal because it's the Lizard, but he probably was the only one that was a tad bit wasted. But I mean, I thought they all did their thing. And, to go back to the cure villain thing, I mean, I kind of want to debate that a tad bit, because that really wasn't their decision. That was more Spider-Man's decision, where he is at this point in time of his Spider-Man career. And he has a long way to go, guys, before he's going to be this older Spider-Man. He went from being this young, eager boy wanting to be an Avenger. He just learned how to be a hero in Far From Home. And now he just literally told everybody to basically forget about me. So to say that Tom Holland didn't show growth in this movie as Spider-Man and that he was still making mistakes, I will debate that till I'm blue in the face. They absolutely have advanced Tom Holland Spider-Man. They left him off in an incredible spot. Like you said, his costume at the end was absolutely brilliant looking. And Tom Holland, you can tell they're moving. They have always planned to make 9 Spider movies with him. I don't know if everybody knows that, but there's 9. There's 2 other trilogies coming. He's going to be older now, and he's going to be moving forward. And you can tell they left him off, that he had incredible growth in this movie. And I highly disagree that he was the idiotic young Spider-Man that he was in the other 2 movies. Highly, highly disagree.
Well, I kind of find it, hard to believe too, that after years of them being villains, that it only took a few minutes for them to cure them. by coming up with all of these vaccines, I guess you could call them, or whatever that they had that they injected.
But they knew that knowledge, though. Like, he knew how to cure the lizard already, and he figured out how to do the nanotech thing. Like, it wasn't like they were discovering new things. These were things that are incorporated from the previous movies being presented in this movie. These weren't like surprise things that were being thought of. So again, I just can't get on board with it. I really think it might not be in my top 10 of MCU movies, but as far as like written and like how they incorporate these other franchises, guys, this was incredibly, incredibly written and well done. If you look at it from that angle, it really was.
Right. And you also look at it as these characters continued on in their lives from when we last saw them. So when we last saw Tobey Maguire, you know, he was in college. He was going after science. So during that time of where he's aged 15 years, they never said, for all we know, he could have been a chemical engineer, theoretical chemist or something. His scientific growth could have happened significantly where he was saying, you know what, Norman Osborn really screwed himself up. What if, you know, I found out what sort of goblin formula he used, and would there have been a way to reverse it? So he might have been tinkering with all these things anyway in his mind. And then he came up against, you know, the two other ones. Andrew Garfield, I don't know how far he is, but he was a smart kid pursuing science once again. Tom Holland obviously is smart enough that he got Tony Stark's attention. So you have the three smart guys in a room, and each of them have had experience with each of these type of villains. So it kind of makes sense that now that no one's throwing buildings at them and trying to kill them, that the three of them sitting down and saying, how do we solve this problem? That made sense to me, that they would be able to work out cures for them.
But so, I'm with Charlie though, when the villains should be villains. I mean, I could see Sandman being a good guy, because I mean, he was a good guy at the end of Spider-Man 3. Maybe Doc Ock, you know, I liked his redemption, but just his Goblin, Lizard, who the hell, Electro, they got to be bad. I mean, and all of them should have started off bad. It should have just been guns a-blazing. These guys are out of control. They're not easy to capture. And that's another thing too. I think that's why maybe Doctor Strange could have said all these villains, maybe give us a sixth one to make it the Sinister Six, and say, this is way overwhelming for us. We're going to need help. And then he's the one to realize that there's other Spider-Men in different universes, and he pulls them in. I think that would have been far better, but I did not like the fact that they went on some little camping trip in a truck or a van all together, all friendly and huggy, you know, to go to Happy's house and say, all right, you know, let's work together and all that. It just, that bothered me, and would especially bother me too, which I didn't understand. What the hell was the Lizard doing in that van? They're like, well, he's not going to come up. He's just going to hang out. And then all of a sudden he gets pissed off when everybody starts turning against, I guess, was the Spider-Man? Yeah, the Spider-Man at that point were there. I don't know. I just, for me, I just think that Disney is very weak with their villains. Like, they're almost afraid to insult people or to make a villain feel bad, that they're a bad person. Everybody has to be good. They have to be, they're not bad, they're misunderstood. And to me, that's not Spider-Man villains. Maybe some of them, but not all of them.
Well, I wouldn't go, they're not bad, they're misunderstood. These were bad dudes.
Not in this movie.
If you look back in the comics, for how many years did, you know, Norman Osborn had this personality that came out, and it always reverted to Spider-Man made him drink something and he went back to a sane Norman Osborn. Like I said, that didn't bother me. The Doc Ock, I made 100% sense to me, because in Spider-Man 2, they had said that it was the AI that he was tinkering with that controlled the tentacles that screwed him up, that he was really a benevolent scientist but he got screwed up from the AI affecting his nervous system. I did like the fact in this one, Sandman seemed more gruff, more like a criminal than being overly sympathetic. He was much more sympathetic in Spider-Man 3. In this one, you know, he's like, I don't know you. I don't trust you. Why am I going to get on your side here? That makes sense for that kind of character. The character I thought that had the most redeeming moment was Jamie Foxx's Electro. I love the fact that he wasn't the goofy thing, and how Andrew Garfield had said, Max is the sweetest guy in the world. What happened to him? Well, what happened to him is he fell into a tank of electric eels, was experimented on, then got short-circuited, however they did it in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I mean, he's been through a lot, that he's a much more serious guy now. And like, I'd love to see more of Jamie Foxx's Electro now. I was dreading him prior to seeing the movie, but I think they did a good job with the characters. I mean, the villains, because they went back to what happened in the comics. You know, Green Goblin was always cured into Norman Osborn that was always nervous. Kurt Connors always got reverted back to from his lizard form. They always went back to that. And you see, I don't find as much as redemption, because no one was there to say, well, you know, Kurt, you're off the hook now because you got cured. We don't see that part because, as you said earlier, it's a movie. Who really wants to see Kurt Connors arrested for scientific neglect because he experimented on himself? We don't want to see that unless it's an episode of She-Hulk when they're doing those goofy lawyer moments. But I thought all the characters, the way they were handled, was good. Electro is the only one who kind of had the issue of getting cured. And I guess because that was the theme, they had to throw that in. Because Electro usually got like short-circuited. And then he got thrown in jail in a rubber suit, so he couldn't have access to electricity. So I like the way they handled all of those. The whole point of curing them goes along with everything from Spider-Man's first 30 years.
Right.
So it kind of, I thought it fit very well with going in that theme.
I agree. I mean, and like in the whole villain thing, I mean, they did have one of their villains, you know, blimp away 5 years of, you know, people's lives and rip out a stone from somebody's head. I mean, we could keep on going. I mean, so I can understand, sure, you can make an argument point that maybe some of the MCU villains maybe are a little weaker as far as their story, but I don't know, man. I mean, to say when you have a villain that, like Thanos, that did what he did on screen, kind of hard to argue that they've Disneyfied their villains. This is, again, just my opinion.
Well, I'm saying after Thanos.
Mm.
I would say recently,
well,
like when you look at Shang-Chi, the Mandalorian ended up being a good guy. Not the Mandalorian, the Mandarin.
But I guess that's where I had the foresight because, and again, going to the, I mean, we know Kang is coming, and Kang is going to make Thanos look like a baby. So especially if they do him right, which I had a feeling they would based on the way Jonathan Majors was in Loki. So,
well, you see, no, again, we don't know for, you know, if that's going to happen. But to me, when I saw him in Loki, he seemed, well, he wasn't evil, I guess, because there's supposed to be multiple Kangs or whatever.
Yeah, we haven't seen the Kang that's going to be the big bad.
Well, let's see if we're going to see that. But right now, the Kang that we saw, I thought he was a pussycat. And again, like we look at, well, Black Widow was different. That guy who played Ray Winston, whoever his character, he was a bad guy. Mm-hmm. But what was the other one? Eternals. I wouldn't necessarily say they were real villains, or they were, you know, Icarus redeemed himself at the end, kind of, or he felt guilty and flew into the sun. It's just even like with the animated movies, it just seems like we don't have a big bad anymore. Like Cruella, they made Cruella good, you know, in the live action one. We don't have like a Captain Hook, or like Charlie was saying, a Scar, or a Gaston or anything like that. It's almost like they don't want to portray anyone as being bad because they're afraid that maybe somebody has those qualities and they might feel that they're put into a box or something like that. Anyway.
If I run into somebody who's going to destroy the world, lock that sucker in a box.
Well, I told you,
Yeah,
Jack. I mean,
yeah.
Throw it off a pier
So
somewhere.
true. I mean, I understand the points I do, but I think the long play is always going to be in terms of the MCU. And I think you guys are going to be really surprised with Kang. He's going to be in Ant-Man 3. And I think you guys are going to be pretty okay with what they're going to do. As long as they do Kang how he was in the comics, he is a much, much, much more evil person than Thanos could even dream of.
all right, we'll see.
I don't have faith in the MCU. So
We can agree to disagree. I think it's arguably the greatest franchise that there's ever been spawned. So,
up until Endgame, absolutely, 100% agree with you. After Endgame, don't know what's going on there.
you got to give it a chance. There's too many characters for them to hold on to what they had in Endgame. We're always going to have the Infinity Saga. It's never going to go anywhere. But when you have a library and a treasure trove as large as Marvel, you have to attempt to move forward. You can't live in what you've always done. You have to try. Now, doesn't mean that they won't ever revert back to it or find a way to, if it's really getting that bad, to bring back a Cap or a Tony. But when you have the characters that they now have access to, when they got Fox, you have to attempt to move forward. You really have to try. And I think they're in a safe spot. I think they're in a good spot because we haven't even got Fantastic Four yet. We know they're coming, and we haven't even got their version of the X-Men yet. And if we don't think the MCU's X-Men are going to not blow the roof off, I mean, I think we're all being a little doubtful at this point in time. I think we have to trust in Lord Feige moving forward. I mean, I think he's kind of proving his track record here.
And we also know from this that the Netflix Marvel universe is included now in canon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Charlie Cox in there. I love that scene where he catches the brick.
Oh, absolutely!
Oh man,
it was absolutely
so
brilliant.
good.
When I was watching with Bianca, as soon as I saw the cane drop, I started hitting her. I knew exactly who it was. I was hyped up, let's go. And that's what I mean. It's like I totally get it. I mean, the Infinity Saga will probably forever, Infinity War and Endgame, watching those two movies back to back, it doesn't get any better for me as far as a movie experience. I don't think it probably won't be topped for years. But I guess I'm just one of those hopeful fans that you have to, like I said, you have to attempt to move forward. And clearly Holland's going to be a big part of that, which is why I think they left him where they left him in No Way Home, as kind of like Joe was alluding to. So I have faith in where this is going. And I think you have to give it a chance. You can't just be like, oh, it's not going to be
I'd 100% give it a chance. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was awful. WandaVision was questionable. I didn't even see Loki because I just didn't want to ruin my impression of Loki. I'll always have old Loki. Shang-Chi was unwatchable. Black Widow was boring. I just, where are the, it makes me think. I'll go back and look at Thor: The Dark World and look at that, because that was Citizen Kane compared to any of these new films.
I mean, I wouldn't say that Shang-Chi was unwatchable. Shang-Chi was a really good movie.
Well, I wouldn't know. I got to 45 minutes and turned it off and went, this isn't for me.
I got you. I mean, it's fair. And you should give Loki a shot, man, because honestly, it probably is the best of all the Disney Plus shows, in my opinion, at least.
Well, Hawkeye. Actually, no,
Hawkeye's been very good too.
I like Hawkeye. Yeah, I like Hawkeye. Okay.
Yeah,
I like Hawkeye.
Yeah, but Loki was well done, especially with where the MCU is going now and what's going to be part of Phase 4 and 5. It does a really good job of setting that up.
I thought Loki was painful, so I got to disagree with you, Sean.
That's okay.
Yeah,
that's all right.
I'm on that boat too. But no, to each their own. I mean, that's why it's good that basically we can like what we want to like. Let's get some other people in here. Dan, I'm looking at you because it's like you kind of look like Daredevil. So, what did you think about seeing Matt Murdock in the film?
I thought it was great to see him in there. I'm like you though, Joe. I haven't seen the Netflix series. It just seemed like too big of a task to jump 20 episodes a season.
I saw the first season and in a big chunk of the second season, but I never tackled the third.
Oh man, I'd check that out, Dan. Daredevil just gets better with each season.
Absolutely.
But
just need more
I
and
do
more
have
time.
to say, use the subtitles because they sometimes speak so quickly, you just miss the dialogue. You can't keep up. Where the first time I was watching it, I had to rewind, listen again, rewind, listen again, because especially the actress who plays Elektra, I think she's terrific, but she speaks very quickly with an accent, and it's hard to pick up a lot of what she says. So use the subtitles and you'll love it.
Right.
Fedra, you,
But I did like how they're
oh, I'm sorry.
just no, sorry. I do like how they're just blending everything in. I think even with the villains and using the other Spider-Man movies and using the Netflix series, you could just throw it all together and you'd get a reaction. But I think that they're tying everything in just nicely, and they didn't overuse Daredevil either. They didn't even they didn't know him as Daredevil either. They just said Matt Murdock. So it's, you know, he's there, you know, he can appear in a future movie, but he also doesn't have to. He can appear in the second movie of the next trilogy for 20 minutes if he wants to. They can put him somewhere else. It's just nice to know that they acknowledge all those other Marvel avenues, you know, that
Yeah,
time in over the years.
I can understand them not putting Daredevil in the movie because, you know, you didn't want to take away from the fact that you had the 3 Spider-Men. But I think that we could have seen some more screen time for Matt Murdock, maybe just like maybe 2 minutes more. I think that what they could have done was maybe he could have visited him while he was being interrogated in jail, you know, just a little bit more. Because I feel like, I don't even know if he had a minute of screen time in this movie. It was good to see him, but I just would like to see more of him.
It makes me want to go back and watch the series. Just that small cameo. I'm intrigued now, and
Yeah.
you know, Jack, you've been saying that for forever on the podcast. Is watch Daredevil, and I apologize. I should have done, and I will do.
Oh,
Daredevil,
you've never seen it,
No,
Charlie? Oh, you should.
Yeah. It is
Daredevil, the first season of Jessica Jones, the second season of Iron Fist, and their version of the Defenders was fun. But like I said, Daredevil is just a step above all the other ones.
Yeah. Agreed. It is
What about
great.
you? What about you, Fedra? You happy?
I haven't seen the Daredevil series. It's on my list because I was a big fan of reading the comics in the past. But I loved his cameo. The context was perfect, and that's what I hope that in more MCU films that they do that. You know, the scene where I'm blanking on which villain he was speaking to, but when Vulture literally like looked at him and said, "Hey, we should meet up again, or we should talk, or whatever," like just those little scenes really like encompass a lot. So I hope in the same way that they put in Daredevil more and other characters, because what it reminded me in that scene is what Tobey Maguire's character said, which was like, I'm not telling everybody that I'm Spider-Man. I'm a vigilante and I'm kind of like under the radar. And that's what I liked seeing. It was like, here's under the radar, where no one is aware of Daredevil. They just see him as a lawyer.
Well, I know you have a lot of notes. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up that you were dying to bring up about this movie?
I mean, when we talk about the villains, I really feel like you and Charlie, where William Dafoe was the villain for me. And I just had this kind of feeling that they were kind of under the radar talking about mental health, because I just kept looking at William Dafoe as like schizophrenic. It's like half the time he's Green Goblin, half the time he's like whimpering. And so also with Jamie Foxx, I was like 50-50. It was like, I like what they did in changing him up from the last film, but then I felt like they changed him up completely, where it felt like a completely new character. So then it was very difficult for me to connect. I mean, Sandman was really like the most down to earth, just like Jack said, like, oh, I don't trust you. I don't know who you are, you know, like that was very clear to me. I loved evil Dr. Octavius, but then when they changed him up, I was kind of like, do I believe this? Do I not? The fact that they all need to be cured, hated that idea completely. Because I feel that they're trying to make that everybody's redeemable, and you should have, compassion, when these guys were like down to earth evil. They were robbing and destroying places of community and killing innocent people. And, this underlining tone of like, yeah, let's get this little mixture. Let's shoot them in their neck and they're going to be fine. And they'll be new and different and changed. And then we'll send them back home. And it's just like, all right, okay, I know this is a movie, but the messages that they're showing, depending on who's watching it, if they're, more mature folks like us, or if they're teenagers, it's just not reality. Like I like to have a little bit of reality here where it shows like that is an evil person and they ain't going to change. That's who they are. So you can kill them, you can lock them up, whatever you want to put as your message, but like, don't hide away from that. And I don't know why they're doing it. I don't know if they don't want to insult everyone. I don't know if they have this checkbox of a narrative that they have to put in, what they want to include and not include, what they're afraid to put in and what they're afraid to take out. Like, I don't know what's underneath that, but I've seen it in everything that we mentioned, in Loki, in the What If series, in Shang-Chi, like it was just everywhere. And like, I don't know, it kind of, I'm still going to remain open moving forward on every film that we watch. But this is why I'm so brutal with my rating, because it's like, I don't want to see this. I want to see a true fight. I really want to cheer for the hero. And you have to have reasons why. And I did have a problem with Aunt May dying. It's like, man, like, I really don't need to see this again. I truly don't. And I mean, I agree with you, Bianca.
That's why you didn't get a 10 from me.
I mean, I agree, Bianca, like as an actor, Tom Holland, yes. Like, I swear, like I would have cursed him out if he could not get this right. It's like, dude, like you got to cry. You got to cry. Like, I want to see it. I want to see that you had loss and you now understand what loss is. But then I had a problem with that underlining message of, and I know, Sean, I'm ready to debate you with this, but it's like,
I'm ready.
I really felt like it was weak of the Tom Holland Spider-Man when he's literally go-foring to kill the Goblin. And it's Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man that is holding him up and saying, you can't do that. That's not right. That's what's being a hero. Like, to me, and I'm taking it like literally because I'm seeing it as the message of what they're conveying a hero is. That's not a hero. When you are so emotionally like messed up that you're like now like, okay, I'm going to go kill the villain. Like, that's also showing weakness because you don't have control over yourself. Now you're just no better than the other. And it was like literally showing that, but it was also showing Tobey Maguire saying, we're better than this. We're the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. We don't kill. So I like that they were showing that contrast, but I didn't see Tom Holland as being strong at that point. And then when he literally waits for this spell to happen where everybody doesn't know who he is, he's going into the cafe and I'm thinking, okay, he's coming to the choice. What's his choice going to be? And instead he just completely, like, this is how I see it, as ghosts his own friend and his girlfriend, saying like, well, I can't tell them now. It's like, okay, I guess you're going to be alone now, but like, is that really the answer?
Put yourself in his shoes. I mean, to walk into that cafe and say, listen, you don't remember this, but you love me and I love you. And Ned, you don't remember this, but we've been best friends for years and years. And let's just start building this again. Like, no, you have to kind of just take it gently and start that relationship and that friendship over again. If he really loves Ned and MJ, which we know he does, it's better in his eyes to kind of just start from the beginning with them than come in like and convince them that they already knew him.
Who else? Oh, sorry, Joe.
No, I want to say really quick. I was discussing this with Julian and Fedra last night. I think that they copped out with that scene though when he meets her, because would have made that so much better is if when he's talking to her and he's about to say something, Ned comes in and he says, "Hey, babe," and he gives her a kiss. And
We
he
thought that was
realized-
gonna happen.
Hey, who else thought that was going to happen?
We thought that was gonna happen.
I thought that
Yeah.
was going to happen.
that
Yeah,
would have
yeah,
been
yeah.
perfect, because that would have showed that he loved them so much that he didn't want to break their relationship, and then he had to go
Well,
off on his
Agreed.
own.
Agreed.
I also
And
want
it
to
would have
say,
tied into like the first Spider-Man as well, like with Tobey Maguire, as we were talking about how what's that character?
Harry.
Well, Harry, exactly. Wound up with MJ, and it would kind of combat that idea as well, just a little bit later on in a different universe.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it
also
also,
wanna-
sorry, go ahead.
just real quick, I just want to also say that I really loved in the movie how they made Ned and MJ such good friends that even throughout the movie, you can see that they have a really strong friendship, and it's not just based on Peter. It's not just, oh, I'm going to be friends with you because you're my boyfriend's
Yes.
best friend. And even when MJ and Ned completely forget who Peter is, they're still good friends. And I love that they built that foundation for that friendship.
No, I agree with that.
But
one
where
also.
did that come? Where did that come from? Because it wasn't in Homecoming, and it wasn't in
Yeah.
Far From Home. It wasn't in, Far From Home, and magically appears in this film.
Well, I think in Far From Home, that's when MJ finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. So now that they can kind of talk so openly, the three of them, about his life day to day, I think you become close very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, also
And Charlie, you always, oh, go ahead, Jack.
in Homecoming, she would obviously mess with them anyway,
Hmm.
because they were like, yeah, that she's that weird girl, Well, the weird girl, they were already on the weird girl's radar back in Homecoming, because she would just show up and throw one-liners and just mess with them a bit. So it didn't strike me as they could have formed a friendship anyway, because they knew each other. And then they still would have gone to Europe together without Peter anyway. So they still would have been coming into contact with each other. And it's kind of nice.
He had the unlikely romance with Betty, which really ruined
Yeah.
ruined that
But-
film. It's like,
yeah.
take Ned out. We need to get Ned out of the equation. How are we going to do this? Let him have this romance with this girl that couldn't possibly ever happen in real life. Let's just do that.
Yeah, just like Happy and Aunt May.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it too. I mean, you also have to keep in mind too that these characters have been through a lot together. I mean, they went through the whole blimp, everybody coming back. So natural reactions like that are going to make you draw closer to somebody and get to know them.
That's true.
I was okay with that scene, because I think they had to have a scene, as Joe I think was alluding to show us that, okay, you know what, guys, this Spider-Man now, he's no longer with the Avengers. He doesn't have MJ and Ned. He doesn't have May. Like, this is our chance to now finally, in the next trilogy, he's alone, he's moving forward, and that's what we're going to do. And I think that's why they had to play that scene in that way, because that really was a launching point to give us the sewing machine, making the own costume, finally swinging through New York City, and here we go.
You
You
give
know-
me the
Sean,
chills
I agree
again.
with
Yeah,
that.
and I agree.
Sean, I
Neil?
hope you're right, because really, honestly, I do want to like this film. So if you're right, I will
Well, they're definitely
gladly.
making a trilogy. Yeah, that's why
Shout
they
it
left
out,
the movie out the
like-
way they did. I would bet a lot of money that Craven will probably be the next bad guy in the next one. Craven, and they're eventually Venom will come. They're going to have their own Eddie Brock. We can go all day on that. And the only thing that I want to say about the villain thing is I want to ask a question. Take out Defoe for a second. Of
Take
all
out
the other
who?
villains
Oh,
that were
Defoe.
of all the other villains that were in the Spider-Man movie, which one of them in their previous movies were really truly evil?
Dr.
Which one?
Octavius.
No, he
No.
wasn't.
No,
He was
wasn't.
not. That's the core of his character, is what Jack said. He was a scientist that got taken over by a fried AI. None of them were truly evil in their previous movies. Lizard wasn't. Electro
I think
wasn't.
Norman Osborn
Doc Ock?
ranks up there.
No,
though.
and I said taking out Norman Osborn.
I think
So-
Electro was too. I mean, he.
And look how Electro was in this movie. He was borderline the one that didn't want to be fixed. So
Yeah.
if you think about the previous movies and how they were in their franchises, it kind of again makes sense that they were doing the approach that they did with them. Connors was just a conflicted guy that wanted everybody to become lizards. He wasn't a bad person. He wasn't a terrible, evil lizard like through the whole movie. Same thing with Doc Ock. I mean, there's a whole scene with him. And I mean, Toby was sad when he was drowning in the river. He was literally upset about that. So going back to what Jack said about the comics. I mean, this is not something that Spider-Man has not done before. And like I said, I had no problem with it. It made sense in the movie. And when you really stop and think about those previous villains, guys, taking out Defoe, none of them were truly mastermind evil villains in their movies. They just weren't.
So you want more villains in your movies than in your Spider-Man?
What
did you say? I'm sorry. Really quick, Charlie, what did you say? I missed what you said.
No, I think Sean wants more villains in his Spider-Man films because according to that, there aren't any.
No, it's just I just think that the possible, because she was saying, and I can only go off the comment because they were saying that you guys wanted this like truly evil person that didn't want to be cured and this and that, but those aren't those villains that they use this movie. Now, if the MCU would have made their own Sandman, they would have made their own Doc Ock, they would have made their own Electro, maybe we would have gotten that. But that's not what they were. This was the Doc Ock from Raimi's movies. He was never a truly evil person in those movies. He had his moments when he got fried out, but in the end, the redemption was there. He died technically a good person. You know, that was why it was so sad to see him drowning and falling into his machine that he thought was controlling his life. So I just can't agree with it because only because of these versions of their villains. Not, like I said, if we would have gotten different versions, maybe you could make that argument. But based on what we know of them, none of them were truly evil in their previous movies.
But as Fedra pointed out, and I'm sorry to bring it back to the basic of this, they've killed a lot of people. They're not nice. They're not nice. They're not whatever their backstory is, whatever anything else is. They've done a lot of damage and they've killed a lot of people. They're bad guys.
Yeah,
fair.
I mean, the point. I mean, just to bring up your point, Sean. In the new film, I think it was Tom Holland's Spider-Man that brings up like that. You know, you're pointing out that you want this destruction to the lizard scientist and that, you know, everybody should be lizards and that they shouldn't be human. And you saw him, he was like, yes. And I'm just like, whoa, I don't want to be a lizard. Like, you know, like that's not kind of, you know, good. I don't know.
No, it's not. But Dr. Connors at his core is not a bad, horrible person. That's the thing. Yes, when he becomes a lizard, he obviously has his look and he's an evil bad guy. But when he goes back to being Dr. Connors, and he realizes what he's done, he's not Carnage. You know, using a quick example, Carnage to me, flat out evil person. There's no good about Carnage. You're not going to want to sit in a room alone with Carnage, with the symbiote or not. That to me is a villain. Connors, not a full-blown villain, nor was Doc Ock. Technically, nor was Electro. I mean, Andrew Garfield alluded to it like 3 different times in the movie. Max, you're a good person. Like, this is not you. I think they were trying to hammer that point home because these guys were never truly evil, minus Defoe.
Is Thanos a villain, Sean?
What's that?
Is Thanos a villain?
Thanos is a villain, but he had a point. But he was a villain to a degree.
He was very complex in Infinity War.
Very complex villain, which is why he was written the way he was, and which is why he probably will go down as arguably one of the greatest villains we're ever going to see on screen.
Yeah, agreed.
Question, Sean. It might be a spoiler, but my question to you then is Venom a villain?
The Venom that I want to see, and not Hardy's Venom, yeah, he should be. And I think the MCU will do it right. I don't think the MCU will have him talking to his symbiote and having pizza and squeezing ketchup bottles. And I think that's why we're not getting the Hardy's Venom in the MCU. Kudos for them for pulling it off and making him more of an anti person, like kind of how like Deadpool is. But Venom at the core, Venom at the core of his comic. I mean, you can even argue, say Raimi's, even though he was quick, almost did him better because Eddie Brock does not like Peter Parker. And when he gets that symbiote, he wants nothing to do, and he's not a good person. So Venom should be a villain, but we haven't gotten a proper one.
And I, like, from the comic books, you know, imagery, I was always terrified of Venom. And when I saw Tom Hardy, it was a joke. And
absolutely.
So I guess we're in agreement there.
They ended up making him a good guy at some point, and I hate when they do that. Like when
I agree.
But anyway, I wanted to get to Dan because I know he had his hand up, and then Jack had his hand up too. So we'll go with Dan first, and then we'll get to Jack.
Oh, it was just on Bianca's point before about that end scene in the cafe, and I felt that was a growth moment for Peter Parker because I think if he'd have gone into the cafe and seen MJ looking miserable at work and Ned was sad and didn't look happy, I think he would have gone in and he would have tried to restart the friendship and everything again. But I think because he saw them happy, and I was like you, I thought they were going to kiss at one point. I thought they were going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. But because he saw them happy and they were safe, I think it showed that he loved them enough, like so much that he made that sacrifice to keep them out of danger. I think he spent, 2.5 hours, or he spent the entire movie trying to keep them out of danger. And he saw what happened to Aunt May and what potentially nearly happened to everybody. And he found a way of keeping them safe by just checking that they were all right, buying the coffee, and then he left. And I think that showed his maturity, and I think then made him into a more adult, grown-up Spider-Man, and I think that's what we'll see going forward.
Correct.
Mm.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree
Well
more.
said, Dan. Good
Yeah.
perspective.
Oh. Jack, what did you want to say before?
Oh, well, I was going to say when we were talking about villains, how William Dafoe, I think, did such a great job that here it is. We had this big dramatic moment of Tobey Maguire. I think it should have been Andrew Garfield that stopped him. That Andrew Garfield could have been like, you don't want to go down this path sort of thing. Because Andrew Garfield said how he kind of went off on people a bit. So I thought that should have been Andrew Garfield that stopped him. But I also love the fact that even though Tobey Maguire saved the Goblin at that point, that the Goblin stabbed him in the back.
Mhm.
That in itself shows what
Who the Goblin is.
villain
Yep.
there is in the Green Goblin. And
Yeah.
he can crop up again because Norman has these episodes where that is schizophrenia, where, Norman Osborn will start seeing things that just aren't there. And eventually that will drive the Goblin to come out. But the Green Goblin is just so freaking nasty that even stabbing the guy who saved him in the back is completely in his villain profile.
Yeah.
And Norman Osborn isn't a nice person anyway to start with. But the Goblin is just so much worse that we say, oh, he's cured. Even if he's cured, I mean, he's going to get hauled into court and, probably try to get out on insanity plea or something. So none of these guys are getting off the hook if you take it to the next part. But do any of us really want to go through the arraignment of Norman Osborn?
No.
I don't
No,
think
but
so.
I think that's also what Jack and Fedra were talking about with like evil characters, is they want, like, he was like sinister, he was like really like evil. Like it didn't even matter if somebody tried to save him, he would still stab him in the back.
Right.
I think that's what they were trying to talk about. Like that's what the type of like bad characters that they were looking for.
Right. And that's him. I mean, the Goblin is just a nasty guy who he will take a cheap shot. And well, hence Gwen Stacy, that's as cheap a shot as you get in the superhero world. So I wish we could see more of the Green Goblin in the MCU. Maybe we will someday.
Maybe we will. It's possible.
We will.
So I want to talk about Aunt May. Of course, you guys, if you know me, I was glad that she died.
And you know me, I was very sad to see her go.
Well, I'm just glad to see that somebody died. Hopefully she remains dead. I mean, it didn't necessarily have to be her, but again, when you look at what they did with the Rise of Skywalker, when they would kill somebody and then they just bring them back like 10 minutes later. It's nice to see when a person, because that gives weight to the film too, that somebody actually died, or they might have sacrificed themselves, or she did that to save Peter. So I'm just kind of, my only issue with that whole thing is I felt that he really should have killed her, like maybe with the glider or something like that, because it seemed like she died of debris or like an accidental pumpkin bomb exploded, but I don't think he was intentionally trying to kill her.
Well, I thought she got hit by the glider as it was coming through.
Through the window, yeah.
Was
I
it
thought
the
glider came through
glider?
that. I thought it came through the door and clipped her.
Yeah, but you'd think
She's-
that with a stab wound, she would have dragged rather than just kind of like getting knocked down like a,
Yeah,
only
the
just getting
damage-
gently bumped.
But she might not have been impaled. She could have been, hit by a wing. Plus
She
like
should have.
a-
She
like
should
we
have died
saw.
instantly, Jack. She should have
Hmm?
died instantly.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
a movie.
Well,
She needed
yeah, but
the
then you
death
wouldn't have the-
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have. The
I know what you're
drama.
gonna say. I know what you're gonna say, Sean. But go ahead.
Yeah. You can't
Yeah,
have a
just
die. I
saying.
mean, that goes back to what Joe was saying about, it's still a movie. You have to have, you have to let, Holland, do his thing, be an actor a little bit. Like they were saying, finally showed him cry, show some range, show some, So I hear you, but they had to have that scene, please breathe, please do all that. I mean, they had to have that, or it wouldn't have been as dramatic. It wouldn't have been such a big deal, and then you wouldn't have had him be so angry, because for the rest of that movie, all he wanted to do was kill Norman. You saw it when they were making the cures. You
Yep.
saw when he was fighting him on top of the shield in the water. I mean,
Yep.
that's probably in any Spider movie to date, that's probably the most punches a Spider-Man has thrown to a villain that physically and that angry in any Spider-Man movie. And I was happy to finally see it, because you don't really see that a lot from any Spider-Man.
It's
It's
true.
always him swinging the webs, and that's fine. But he was brutal in that scene. So I think that's why they had to play that scene out that way, because you had to give Holland a reason to go into that final fight with the anger that he had.
Yeah, I
do
get
also
that, but I was
kind
kind of like, sorry, Julie.
No, please go.
No, I say I wanted it nice and quick, like Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea. Boom, done. Shock, done. That's the kind of thing. But I understand. But I can see, Sean, how you need to get Tom Holland and show his acting chops, limited as they are. You need to have that scene in order for him to grow.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I do also
give me a
kind
bit
of
of
like.
give me a bit of Sam Jackson. Boom.
I did like the idea that Tobey Maguire did step in compared to Andrew Garfield, because like they both had their moments. Andrew Garfield saved MJ, and then
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire came in and did
That's a good
the
point.
That's a
the
good point.
mentor, like, hey, you're better than this. You don't have to do this. You know what I mean? I do also kind of like those two dynamics and those two aspects. However, yeah, I don't know. I do agree that they could probably settled everything a little bit differently in the end, especially with the Goblin and stuff like that. But I do also agree with Fedra where they played Tom Holland to be a little bit weak. I do like that aspect, of him coming in and being like the bigger, Tobey Maguire being like the bigger man and saying, hey, you could push through this. Like, you don't have to, take the killing somebody route, because as you could also see, it's like Andrew Garfield and also Tobey Maguire have had a little bit more experience, and they're like, it's like they've seen some stuff, you know what I mean? Like they've been through, and like when he gets stabbed and then Andrew Garfield is helping him out, he's like, are you okay? He's like, it's all right, I've been stabbed before, I did.
Yeah, he was stabbed before. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I know this is going to be an unpopular view, but part of me would have liked to seen Tom Holland Spider-Man kill the Goblin, because for me, Spider-Man's not Batman. He doesn't have that rule where he doesn't kill, although, I mean, I know why they did it, but I still, part of me would have liked to seen him have to live with that too. Because, again, he killed the only family that he had left. So I wouldn't blame him for killing him.
Yeah.
It's a
When
solid
I
scene.
when
And
I
then
saw
living through
that when I saw that scene, I was smiling to myself. I was like, first of all, the first thing was, Joe, you got what you wanted. Not only did
yeah.
Happy did not get Aunt May, she's breaking up with him at the door saying like, yeah, it was a fling. It was really nice. It was a lot of fun, but we can't be serious. And, you see Happy heartbroken. I mean, he's already heartbroken and grieving for Iron Man's death. But then that, and then she dies. It's like, I don't know. To me, I was pissed. I was like, I don't need to see Aunt May or Uncle Ben die again. Then I do have a problem with them killing off the elderly characters, whether it's male or female. I do have a problem with that. It's like to me, that's another addition to the checklist. Sorry, we can't have any older women here. God forbid they have wrinkles or, they're not, up to the nines, and same thing with men. I have a problem with that. If there's an older father figure who's been through some stuff, no, we can only have them for just a limited amount of time. And then they got to die because, there cannot be a healthy, functional family in any Disney movie, except for now that they're showing Hawkeye. But that's a totally other subject that we can talk about forever. But that's my problem because it's literally in every Disney film. And it's just like, all right, I'm getting tired of seeing that play out over and over. And I understand the maturity level there as a hero to suffer. But then the reason, as I go back to that scene when I was mentioning with Sean, is that Tobey Maguire is showing Tom Holland's Spider-Man that yes, you can kill to defend, but when you seek revenge, you're really no better than the villain. You become the villain yourself. So that segment should have been in Spider-Man 3, but they never did it. They really could have, showing, Tobey Maguire's, emo scene with the symbiotic there. They should have gone into that a little bit further, but they didn't. I do like what they did with that segment because it was fun to see emo Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, definitely.
But they didn't really show that. So that's the only thing where I can't see Tom Holland murder, Goblin just because he killed, the last relative. Then it's yes, you have that regret, but then how are you any better? You're supposed to be the defender and the protector of New York. So leave it up to the cops or leave it up to them to just take the villain. That's my favorite thing in a lot of the comics is that Spider-Man just creates this little web and says, here you go, guys, take it from here. I love that because it's just this isn't my role. My role is to be the role model of New York. I'm supposed to protect New York. I'm supposed to be your friendly, Spider-Man and to know that you're safe. After this, I just put you in a little blob and they take it from there. But that's just my perspective.
I mentioned this last night at the staff party, and it kind of blew some people's minds. What if Uncle Ben is not dead? Because we've never seen his body. We've never seen a picture of him. We're just under the assumption that he's dead. But maybe he just, May was under the impression that he died because something had happened and his body was never found. But maybe he can return in the next movie.
Oh, I hope
Can we have Martin Sheen from the multiverse? Can we have that?
Some secret project somehow working with Nick Fury in some other world.
Or he's hanging out in a subway tunnel or something. Right. With his secret lab.
An interesting thought, but I think I think in some ways I think they left Holland where they left him on purpose because I think they want to start to get away from what we know of Spider-Man. And I think they've, they did kind of a little of the Avenger thing, right? They did kind of, but now they finally can almost start from scratch. They gave us this fan service movie. We finally got a live action Spider-Verse. And now in number 4, in the start of the next trilogy, we can literally start from scratch and, we can almost do whatever they want. It's almost a blank canvas at this point in time. So I think not a bad idea, but I think that's why they left him where they left him.
Jack?
Well, I almost think what we're seeing is, especially Sean that just said they plan on 9 movies.
Yeah, they do. They have 2 more
trilogy. I think what we're going to start to see now is in the comics how Spider-Man took a definite shift. Back around very early on, 39, 40, when Ditko left and they revealed Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin. Ditko left because he didn't like that decision. He didn't like what Stan Lee was doing. So that's when we took a definite shift from high school Peter Parker to a college Peter Parker. So I'm thinking we're going to see that kind of error coming up where he's a little bit older. He's still a little bit young, but he's still a little bit older. But think of college age. Now the Spider-Man we have, let's face it, he's grown up, he got married, he moved in with Mary Jane. Even though he took that away, we're still in that stage of an adult Peter Parker where he's had different jobs. He's not just a reporter. I think in the second trilogy here, we're going to see him struggling as a college student, trying to make ends meet. We'll probably see him helping J. Jonah Jameson, just like that long era after Ditko and in the Ramita era. I think later on, eventually, we're going to see him with a support structure, a social support structure again. He's going to have somebody in his life. And then we're going to go back to that whole scenario of him juggling, keeping them safe and still being Spider-Man, keeping up this responsibility. So I think we're just going to see a phase. And the way this ended with a very clear cut of where Peter Parker is, I think we're going to see the Spider-Man I think Joe is looking for. I don't think the current Spider-Man is the one Joe is looking for now. I think Joe wants to see the guy that we're going to see in the next trilogy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially with the way
because the MCU is all about making Joe happy.
But
that's their goal.
But it is all about the long play, and I think they purposely made him do the costume on purpose, made him look the way he did. I think like it was not. Listen, nobody can disagree with this. The MCU never does anything by accident. They never have, and they probably never will. And I think there's a very clear reason why they had him end up where they did at the end of that movie.
Well, I thought it was also a way for Sony just to say, you know what? If we don't go for a deal anymore, we've left Spider-Man completely alone. We cut out all that MCU stuff.
Yeah.
So the negotiations for Spider-Man 4 should be pretty interesting, I think.
Can I bring up I was going to say a minor annoyance, kind of like a major annoyance, because I'd be interested to get other people's theories. I didn't know if you were going on a particular tangent, Joe, but I just thought it might be a good point to bring this up. Why is it so bad that Spider-Man isn't anonymous? Because the problem that I had with the initial thing of the film is, Mysterio says it was Peter Parker. He gets helicopters around, he gets people outside, people throw things at his window and things like that. You never see him defending himself, because in reality, what he would have done is he'd gone on Jimmy Fallon or he'd gone on 60 Minutes and he would have gone, do you know what? Mysterio's lying. And here's why. Here's actually what happened. And here's the context to it. And he would have redeemed himself that way. So are we supposed to say that as soon as he moved into Happy's flat, all the helicopters disappeared, everything disappeared, that suddenly couldn't be touched? And you kind of like, so are we talking that Doctor Strange actually invites the theory of casting a spell so everyone forgets, just so his friends can get into MIT? It's because that's all that's left. Because he doesn't fight his case, he doesn't put his side forward, he just lets court of the public opinion gather more information and just ends up feeling like, oh, my friends are going to be really affected by this. Well, I'm sorry, a spell that's going to change everything, which, like the Edith glasses, he mucks up again, and you're like, oh, well,
yeah,
is that it?
No, I mean, you make a good point. But, the whole thing, it's kind of like the monkey's paw, like be careful what you wish for, or the butterfly effect. And that's what happened. Like he figured that, well, if I get everybody to forget that I'm Spider-Man, except these people, but he didn't know what kind of repercussions it was going to have. And which brings me to, I wanted to mention Doctor Strange and Bianca. Wanted to get to you. So what do you think about Doctor Strange in this?
Well, just to quickly about what Charlie was saying, at the end, Doctor Strange wasn't able to hold back all the villains. I assume they were villains, or just the other people from the other universes that were coming in. That was a big reason why Peter said, well, then we need to just do the spell where everybody forgets that I'm Spider-Man, because that could have unleashed who knows what, who knows who could have came in. I think Doctor Strange was good in this movie. I mean, he kind of felt a little neutral. he was very easily talked into doing the spell for Peter. He was like, oh yeah, that's pretty easy. Let's just go ahead and do that, even though Wong, who's the Sorcerer Supreme, was urging him, maybe we shouldn't, help Peter with the spell. But I really liked the end with him on the Statue of Liberty and helping Peter, and his goodbye moment with Peter when he knew that he was going to forget who he was. I really liked that moment. That was probably my favorite Doctor Strange moment in the whole movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't like that he was demoted.
Yeah.
With the Sorcerer Supreme, because for
I
me,
think Wong.
I thought that was funny.
I think Wong is a good Sorcerer Supreme, though.
And I don't know how long that will hold. I mean, like, I'm sure something will go on in the multiverse. But I agree. But I kind of almost agree with Jack. Like, I'm almost in the middle of both you and Jack. Like, it was a little surprising to hear, but at the same time, like, I thought it was kind of funny. It's like, oh, Wong of all people. But then again, like, maybe that's, I don't know what they want to do, because Wong was like the one who showed up in Shang-Chi, and maybe he's going to kind of be the one that maybe has a bigger stuff. But the one thing I will say about Doctor Strange, the only thing, and then surprised we haven't brought it up yet, is that entire mirror scene between him and Spider-Man was absolutely glorious. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I will say there was a lot of cool stuff in there. Like, I love the fight with him and Doc Ock in the beginning with Spider-Man.
Yes.
On the highway,
Yes.
That was
Very
great.
much.
And like
Very
you said, that mirror scene was awesome. But it's just some things I didn't like. Fedra, you had your hand up?
Yes. I definitely loved Doctor Strange in this. I wish there was more of him. And I think to me, it showed his science, logical, intellectual side, and then a little bit of his humor. Of course, I think like he's starting to become, my favorite. Like, I really loved Captain Marvel, but I'm really starting to really get into Doctor Strange. So I loved the fact that he was at first, he's saying like, oh, being curious, like, okay, it doesn't sound like too much. Like, okay, he's thinking analytically, like, okay, I can make this happen for Spider-Man. But then afterward, he's like, you didn't even freaking call the college. Like, that was just awesome. It was just, again, this kind of like father figure, but also just like as that intellect of like, you didn't even bother to do that. Like, but it was also showing his lack, or what he didn't think of. I love that moment where Wong is like going through his portal and he's like, hey, keep me out of this. Like, I loved that. That was just like this showing of it. But it was also, giving this impression, which I appreciated, that, some things are final. There's some things that you can't take back. So you have to not only be careful of what you wish for, but be careful what you ask for, because not what, you receive will actually be what you anticipated. And I agree with you again, Bianca, that scene where he literally sacrifices himself again, saying like, goodbye. Like, I'm going to, this is part of this acceptance that I can't sustain this. And I'm going to have to now forget Spider-Man. Like, I loved him showing his powers and what he's capable of doing, and the hard decisions that he has to make, and that Spider-Man had to see that and experience that. And the whole like, sir, and you could call me Steven bit, like, I loved it. It was so like, is it formal? Is it not formal? Is it a closer friendship? Is it not? Like, and then the mirror scene, like, that was just great. Like, after seeing, the Doctor Strange film and how his mentor did that to him, now he's doing it to Spider-Man. Like, I ate it up. I love that.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I agree. Wholeheartedly agree.
All right, we're getting close to the end here. I would say we could probably pass on the after credit scenes, because we did kind of mention Venom, and then the second one was basically Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness trailer. They're interesting, but nothing super impactful. We did mention, Venom, and it's possible we might get to see a really good version of Venom in the MCU or the Spider-Man movies. But let's get into how we rank these movies as Spider-Man movies and then in the MCU. And again, it doesn't have to be a number, just like high, low, middle. Charlie, what's your deal?
Well, I think I've spoiler alert. I think I've already
That's true.
said where it's going to be, but yeah, it's bottom of the Spider-Man films for me. Yeah, I'll watch Spider-Man 3 6 times as recompense rather than watch this again. Actually, that's not true. No, I will watch this again because I will. I'm prepared to admit that I may have got certain things wrong, and so I'll watch it again with an open mind. In the whole MCU, and well,
You know where it is.
well, Shang-Chi's. I mean, the latest slew of films have been. I mean, I haven't seen the Eternals, so I don't know where that's going to be on there. I'll wait for it to come out on Disney Plus. It's somewhere near the bottom. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack?
To cancel Charlie's vote, I'm going to put it up at the top.
As your favorite Spider-Man movie?
As my favorite Spider-Man movie, it is the top.
Of
And
all
also
time?
The top,
Whoa.
yes, of all
Being
time.
Homecoming.
Even Homecoming.
What?
What?
Exactly. Even Homecoming, which I thought was
Oh man, I
Great.
can't, Jack.
but I'm going to put this up at the top of my Spider-Man and in the top tier of Marvel.
Wow. And wow, that's pretty impressive. Fedra?
Yeah, no, I can't do that. I will say I mean it's not as bad as Spider-Man 3. I mean it's like I don't know, I guess it's like Spider-Man 3 and then this movie. I guess is what I would say. So I guess middle to bottom out of all the other Spider-Mans in my opinion.
And the MCU, probably bottom tier.
Like just approaching the middle, I would say.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I think it might be my number one Spider-Man as well. But obviously you need to watch all the other ones, including the bad ones, to appreciate it. It's a bit like Endgame. Like Endgame's great, but by watching all the other movies, that's when you get the real payoff with Endgame. So, and then for the MCU, in the top tier,
Okay.
bottom of the top tier.
All right. That's a good place. I could see that. Julian?
I would probably place it in the middle for Spider-Man movies. I think like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2 and also The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I definitely feel like those are probably my top out of Spider-Man. So yeah, I would probably rank it in the middle
He ranks it in the middle.
category of 5 or somewhere. In the MCU, I would probably rank it in the higher middle. you got the lower higher, but I got the higher middle. But
Maybe you guys changed his mind.
yeah, it wasn't as bad as the Eternals. I don't think I think the Eternals I don't even know where the Eternals was going. And there's a lot of other MCU movies that I was really not attracted to at all. I'm not like so fond about the Spider-Man movie. I think they could have done a lot more with storytelling and also visual effects and also presenting characters. But I would definitely rank it in the middle, high middle.
All right,
area.
cool. Bianca?
Yeah, I agree. I think as far as Spider-Man movies, one of the best, either number 1 or number 2, in my opinion. And then in the MCU, it's definitely my favorite of Phase 4. But overall, in the top middle area, I still like the Captain America movies better.
Yeah.
But it's also just completely a different thing, a different story to tell. So definitely towards the top.
Okay. And Sean?
I think the only 2 Spider-Man movies that you could bring to the table would be Spider-Man 2 and Homecoming. I think that's it. I think every other Spider-Man movie, it absolutely blows it out of the water. I wouldn't even dare to bring up either Amazing Spider-Man's or Spider-Man 3. So take that as you will. It probably is, after just seeing it once, maybe I'll still give a little small edge to Homecoming, but it's pretty much neck and neck for me. And as far as where it is in the MCU, I probably would have it somewhere between my 9th and 12th movie overall. it's not going to beat the holy grail of the top four, which is Infinity War, Endgame, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. I think it's going to be a long time between those four movies are beaten.
I agree with that top four.
Yeah, that's how, I mean, like, I think it's going to be a very, very long time before those, at least for me as an MCU fan, before those movies get replaced.
That's great.
Same.
that,
I agree with that, Sean.
Yeah.
It's great that we're ending this where the two of you agree on something.
I don't know what order it is, because I mean I would put it Infinity War, Winter Soldier, Endgame. Yeah, but
Yeah, we're close. I would have Endgame number 2, but Infinity War is my favorite MCU movie. Like for me as a comic book fan, comic movie fan, like I think it's going to be a very long time that I sit in a movie theater and feel the way that I did after watching Infinity War. I think it's going to be very long.
When Thor joins the battlefield, goodness,
bro, we could go on.
Oh,
We could
yeah.
have a whole panel just on that. I mean, and that's why I said, for me as a movie fan, watching those two movies back to back, Infinity War, Endgame, it just, for me, it doesn't get any better. It just does not get any better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this is what's great about doing these roundtables, because the differences were pretty extreme on both sides, and you guys actually kind of helped me think about some things that I didn't think about while I was watching the movie, and I probably will watch it again and think about what you said. I'm not 100% doing like a 180 on how I feel about the movie, but you guys make good points too. So I think that that's what's great, and hopefully the people that are listening too, maybe they were on the fence about certain topics that we had talked about, but they were swayed by what somebody had said. I would say my favorite Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man 2, and then Homecoming. I don't know where to really place this one. I'm just going to say somewhere in the middle. And for me, it would be high. I'm going to sound like Jack. High, low tier. It's the lower tier, but it's up there, But yeah, it was interesting. And again, I think this was a great roundtable. It's probably one of the best ones that we had. So I want to thank you guys for participating. Yeah, I think you were all awesome. And like I said, you made really good points, all of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see everyone.
Yeah, good to see everyone.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, so I guess that's it. And yeah, I won't do the regular so long farewell stuff. Since we might do this, it might go to video. We'll see. So with that, this will be the end of WDWNT Nerd Alert Season 7, Episode 46. So until next time, see ya.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.